Okay, so we made it through a storm. We know that Eurylochus thinks Odysseus' luck will run out. I can't believe I'm saying this. I was actually kind of understanding and potentially quasi-agreeing with Eurylochus in a song.
No myth nerd would ever think that would happen to them.
But we now have Odysseus about to climb to the island in the sky, which will forever make me laugh. He's come to Aeolia. He's going to speak with Aeolus. It does seem this musical has given Aeolus a bit more of a kind of divine status, more in line with his later interpretation, so not really the Homeric tradition. Again, Greeks love to do variations on a theme. It's totally fine. I will just say that Aeolus, I don't even think he would still ever get the phrase wind god, but simplification, streamlining, that's a change I'm not too, like I'm not upset over it. It's just like, at this point, I'm splitting hairs, right? But we're going to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I'm assuming, I mean, that's the phrase, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So that has to be referencing the windbag. I just think that's going to be it, especially when we're going to see Aeolus. That's very fitting for the windbag situation. Let's go meet Aeolus. Oh, there's that flute instrument again. I'm gonna pause. It does sound like it's supposed to be some sort of like pan pipe, pan flute. That could just be an effect of it being kind of an electronic version of a flute, but I do think that's potentially the sound that Jorge is going for. I like that. I mean, a wind instrument is fitting for the keeper of the winds, and I like hearing the wind in the background. I will give Jorge this, again, whether or not I ever disagree with him on his adaptation of the mythology and what have you, he creates really great soundscapes. I mean, especially, again, this is a concept album. There's no staging for us to see. He's really trying to put you in the environment. And really good use of sound design, creation of soundscapes and sound mixing will do that. So, I mean, again, real kudos to the production on this. Oh, water.
Great wind god Aeolus, I don't know.
Oh, I hear you ooze.
This, but our path to home is blocked by an impenetrable storm. I ask for your...
I love these oohings and ahhings that are in the back. Again, the idea of this being the wind god, it's all very airy. It's very light. Now, yes, we're this Zephyrus that would fit. Let's remember the other three winds are a little rowdy. They wouldn't be getting all this very delightful breezy ooey and I. It would probably sound more intense and wild and crazy. I don't know if you could create the soundscape musical equivalent of like a Twister, but that would probably be the others. Again, like setting mood, creating an atmosphere and environment. There's like, and also again, in terms of using the music to emphasize that this is the, you know, our keeper of the winds is associated with the winds. We're doing air, wood winds, floatiness, like breathiness. Very cool stuff.
Assistance, so we at last can go the distance. Can you cast the perfect winds for us and aid our journey?
The layering is great.
Ha ha ha! I am the wind, twisting and turning. I give the fire enough to stay burning.
I am the wind, twisting and turning. Okay, now I have to ask a question. I think I know the answer, which will then lead me to talking. 1, is this supposed to be Aeolus? Or Aeolus, as they say in this. I think I'd mentioned in a comment somewhere, we don't really have anything that tells us how ancient Greek was pronounced, so pronunciations are a little all over the place. Aeolus, Aeolus, tomato, tomato. Unlike, say, Latin, which there's literally texts they have which tell you how you speak classical Latin versus, say, ecclesiastical Latin.
ADHD tangent, we're not here for this.
1, I've been saying Aeolus is a he because he is a king. This is a very much, we have a female singer. I think it's very obvious. Or you have a child, but it sounds like it's a female singer. And would create a sort of, you would almost want to say, genderless quality to the character of Aeolus, which is kind of interesting. Gender in ancient Greek mythology is a really, like, the level of scholarship you would go into on that topic, I can't even begin to talk about, but there's interesting stuff that happens there. In addition, where I'm saying I almost wasn't sure this was Aeolus is the I am the wind. And I was saying how we're setting up this very particular type of sound. I'm like, it's giving Zephyrus more than anything else, the west wind, who is said to be the most gentle of the 4 winds. So I will say this, that even when Aeolus is called like the wind god, if you will, Aeolus was never actually the wind. Again, the winds are personified in Greek mythology. So whether Aeolus is just functioning as a human keeper or has a semi-divine or minor god status, Aeolus is always the keeper of the winds. Aeolus is not the wind itself. In the same way that Apollo is like considered god of the sun, but Helios is the sun itself, or Artemis is goddess of the moon, but Selene or Selene is the moon itself. So you could be the god of something, but you're not the personification of it. This sounds like I'm arguing semantics and splitting hairs, but when it comes to mythology, this would be really important. Aeolus would never call himself, or in this case, themselves, the wind itself. They are just the god of the winds, if you will. They are just the keeper of the winds. The winds have their own existence. They are personified. If you're not going to mention the winds themselves, this is a real beyond conflation simplification for the purpose of the adaptation. I'm now extra curious as to what you're going to be doing with the winds, because I guess we'll just go ahead and talk about the wind bag now. The point of the wind bag is that Aeolus puts 3 of the 4 winds in the wind bag. He basically says, all right, I'm calling all 4 winds out. Okay, Boreas, Notus, and Eurus, you're in the wind bag. Zephyrus, you're going to help this guy get home. So you kind of need to have an understanding of the fact there are 4 winds, and what Aeolus gives to Odysseus is 3 of the 4 winds who are, rowdy and cause problems. And he's like, all right, well, I'll take these 3 winds who are likely causing your problem. We'll give you the nice wind to get you home. More on that later when we get to the point of what happens with the wind bag. I'm curious how we are meant to be doing the wind bag in this respect then, because again, if you're saying I am the wind, it means you're getting rid of the actual winds in mythology.
I'm talking myself in circles.
I'm gonna back up a bit, we'll keep going.
I am the wind, twisting and turning. I give the fire enough to stay burning. Let's play a game.
A game?
That's what I'm serving, and if you win, you will get what you're yearning.
Deal.
Take a look right here at this bag. It has the winds of the storm all trapped. All
Okay.
you gotta do is not open this bag.
Sounds too easy, what's the catch?
That was not intentional.
I need to stop doing that.
So it seems like the musical is treating the winds of the storm as if like we've taken the storm itself and put it in the bag. That's not really entirely what happens in the Odyssey. Again, Jorge has basically destroyed the idea of the 4 winds being existing. You can kind of argue the winds of the storm are in there, but it's not the storm specifically. It's literally north, south, and east winds all in one bag. I'm also a little slightly cocking my head at this version of Aeolus, and that's because as much as the gods very much like to play the game of let's fuck around with humans, and they don't have to find out because they're gods, and so they're always kind of playing games in a way with humans, it's not nearly as much as you would think. The big thing with Aeolus in the Odyssey is that he's not playful at all. He's actually quite serious when it comes to Odysseus and his men. Again, he helps them, but cautiously, and kind of with a warning of you're gonna get this one chance at help. Again, we will get to that, I would assume at some point in this saga. And he does give them the wind bag that has Boreas, Notus, and Eurus in it, and he says, I'll have Zephyrus, blow you home, basically. And he does warn them, don't open this bag. Don't open it, you will release these 3 winds, and you can't control them, so they're literally just gonna blow you about, and it'll defeat the purpose of getting home. There's a flippancy to Aeolus in this version that I'm not sure I love, and I think it's because Aeolus is much more serious in the Odyssey. And even if Aeolus weren't human in the Odyssey and had a godlike nature to him, what he's doing by helping Odysseus is a risk, because he understands that Odysseus is clearly in trouble with one of the Olympians. He doesn't really know which, but he's getting the sense that something is up and off. So this level of flippancy wouldn't happen. The danger of doing this, again, I'm tying into how the gods are done.
I said I would start poking holes.
Aeolus, even in this, having a divine status, is under the Olympians. Of the gods, the Olympians essentially right now are the top of the godly pyramid, if you will. The gods under them, the minor gods, wouldn't want to cross an Olympian because bad things happen. And obviously, the Olympians have no problem punishing other minor gods or even just other gods in general. You have the entirety of what's called the Titanomachia, or the War of the Titans. All of the Titans who formed against them, or Titans who even fought with them and later crossed them, say Prometheus, or the get punished. So the gods will punish other deities. Aeolus would have more caution in wanting to assist Odysseus, whether you're doing it as he's a mortal keeper of the winds or he's a divine, keeper of the winds. He would still not be so flippant. He would have an element of caution. Again, I think Jorge is building on this idea of like, I am the wind. He has really conflated and, erased a lot of the mythology here and is trying to do it like, oh, the wind blows about, it breezes, it's unmoored, it's untethered, therefore it's playful. And I'm like, I get it. The problem is it doesn't really suit the mythology and completely rewrites and changes the tone of the encounter with Aeolus. Especially by the time you get to like the back half of that encounter. Anywho, back to this. I will say I do like the voice for Aeolus. Like the gender thing doesn't bother me. Giving Aeolus a girl voice, making Aeolus, gender neutral, whatever, that's sort of neither here nor there for me. And I do like the voice. The singer has a very lovely voice.
Your friends close and your enemies closer. Never really know who you can trust. If they wanna get the bag open, you gotta say no, sir. Sometimes killing is a must.
What are these backup vocals? They sound like the voices that were there for the Lotus Eaters, but that would make no sense. The reason that makes no sense is because the Lotus Eaters and Aeolus have, like, nothing relates them. And I would think even if you make the Lotus Eaters little creatures, like I guess Jorge has for this musical, they still have no relation to Aeolus. None. There is no correlation. There's no relation. I'm very confused why this voice was chosen, especially when you have these beautiful oohing and ahhings in the back. Why not use those vocals to provide these sort of divine backup vocals? Like, you're already getting a playfulness from Aeolus. This feels kind of juvenile. Like, I hate to say it like that. That sounds insulting to say, but I really don't think these voices suit what's happening here. I think it would be better to have that breathy, airy vocalese, like whoever's doing those in the back, I'd have those delivering these lines. It fits more in line with what's trying to be created here. The soundscape, the idea of this is the wind, these weird, very nasally minion-type voices, which sound identical to how the Lotus Eaters sounded, doesn't make sense. In the context of the sounds you're trying to create, yes, in the mythology it makes no sense, but I think even in the context of the musical, using that voice doesn't make sense.
It's a choice.
But yes, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, and then the sometimes killing is a must. I was gonna say that Odysseus doesn't deliberately kill any of his men, but we haven't hit the Strait of Scylla and Charybdis yet, so there's that. But yeah, no, that's kind of what I figured. Keep your friends close, enemies closer. It is more a warning of keep an eye on the people around you. Odysseus has this, in this case, I wouldn't even call it arrogance. It would be understandable that he wouldn't think his men would disobey him in any regard. He is their captain, he is their monarch, he's gonna give them an order not to open this wind bag, but those who know the myth know that the crew never listens to Odysseus ever. Anywho.
The end always justifies the means.
That's the definition of Odysseus, and it's justifying means. I don't like these voices.
Captain, what's happening? What's trapped in that bag? Something dangerous, friends, we mustn't lie.
It's treasure.
What?
Bye-bye.
Ah.
Let's see what you got. No, do not!
Okay. That actually, weirdly enough, that sort of doesn't quite absolve the crew, but makes them look a little better. So, spoilers, it seems like we're going to get to it in this song, because we're less than 2 minutes into a 4-minute song. Odysseus tells them not to open the bag, but he doesn't tell them what's in it. Or he sort of does, but he really doesn't give them proper clarity. They almost make it home, like home is within sight. He's been not sleeping, keeping the bag to himself, but he does fall asleep. And the crew opens the bag because they are convinced it has treasure. Like, they are convinced that Aeolus gave Odysseus spoils that he was then not spreading around, which we haven't had the stop of Ismaros in this musical, but I had talked about, I think it was Full Speed Ahead, I talked about the stop at Ismaros where they raided the place and Odysseus made a point of saying, I shared all the spoils equally. Now, again, in the context of the Odyssey, because we're getting it from the mouth of Odysseus and he's constantly portraying the crew as disobeying him and being unruly, you could argue he's making a point of saying that so that when we get to this bit with Aeolus where the crew are going to argue with each other saying, he's hoarding treasure to himself, he's not dividing shit fairly, it seems even more ridiculous. Like, how could the crew think that way? We already did Ismaros where he divided stuff equally. He's made a point of saying he treats everyone fairly. Why would they not believe him? They're morons. Again, from the mouth of Odysseus. But in doing it this way, By having it be, I don't even know what these voices are supposed to be at this point. And I don't think this is an issue of not having the visuals. It's just this hasn't been set up, and the way that Jorge has beyond conflated the idea of how this stop works and the winds work. It's yeah, I think I've made it clear. I don't like these voices and I don't think it works. But by having these voices essentially functioning as a mouthpiece of the semi-divine, saying it's treasure, it is in the same way that gods or minor gods or, satyrs, nymphs, whatever, like these characters will often try to influence mortals, maybe to make a bad choice, make a wrong choice. But the idea of something semi-divine or working with a god in a way, trying to influence a mortal to fuck up, that's pretty in line. That's totally something it would do. And it would make it less the crew's fault, because divine influence is very much a thing. And it will maybe not necessarily make people act out of character, but will influence them to give into potentially their worst impulses, you could say. But this would be less that the crew totally doubts Odysseus, but there's an element also of a, deity of sort is interfering. As much as Odysseus's men are going to be very much at fault for opening the windbag, at least we can say, hey, there were greater than mortal forces at work trying to kind of egg them on to do it. And in the case of non-gods that were still, not mortals, so the stuff that's in between, again, like satyrs, nymphs, centaurs, kind of creatures, if you will, yeah, they often gave mortals bad advice for their own ends. The problem, again, is here that there's no point for Aeolus to want to trick Odysseus. We'll just say spoilers. When Odysseus's men open the windbag and Boreas, Notus, and Eurus are released, it blows them right back essentially to Aeolia. And at that point, Aeolus goes, yeah, no, you're apparently basically cursed. A god you are truly in the wrath of a god, and I'm not getting involved. I helped you once, I'm not doing it again, you need to leave. Get out. I suppose I'm just I guess I just don't like this interpretation of Aeolus and whatever these voices are, because Aeolus is genuinely being helpful in the Odyssey. What he does is, there's a risk to what he's doing and he knows it. And in this, it's just I want to fuck with humanity. It feels a little pointless. I think it would actually be more dramatic if really Aeolus was genuinely helping and there wasn't this giggling, cackling nature to the character where it's you already think something is sus. I think it's sort of leaning in a little too hard on the hey, maybe you don't trust this guy, or maybe you don't trust what's gonna happen. And I'm the song is keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We already got that. Let's continue.
Everybody listen closely. See how this bag is closed. That's how it's supposed to be. This bag has the storm inside. We cannot let the treasure rumor fly. We'll try.
Yeah, nope. Oh, the crew providing the vocals now. Singing is a must. I don't really think it's just Polites. Let's not forget he lost 5 other men in the Cyclops cave. I mean, Jorge didn't bother to name them, so I get that, but it's not just Polites. Everything's changed since Polyphemus. Everything's changed since the Cyclops cave. But I suppose maybe it's for rhyming purposes, or, we've tried to make Polites a bigger character than he actually is.
For 9 days I've stayed wide awake, trying to make it home with no storm or tidal wave. I remain unopposed, the bag is still closed, and I'm getting closer to you.
He had about 9 days of sort of staying up.
I can't wait to make some new memories. Time for me to
The crew's harmonies in the back are really nice. Is that the voice of Penelope? Also, he's dreaming, so she's talking to him. Yeah, he's falling asleep. That's clever. And a nice way to bring Penelope into the narrative when, she's not there for so long.
Wake
But it's
up.
the crew.
Wake up! Odysseus, they're opening the bag! Wake up!
Again, we brought in brass, but with the wind. There's going to be a reason for this brass. At this point, someone tell me. We're almost done with the saga. Somebody tell me. What's with the real emphasis on brass? Because we gave Aeolus and Aeolia that sort of pan flute sound. Who's the brass? But yes, the men do open the bag, and like I said, it ends up blowing them right back to where they came from. And Aeolus is like, okay, nah. You've pissed someone off, and I'm not risking it. I gave you help. Sorry, your men suck, basically.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
That is the sentiment. Oh, bringing in the storm
Where's the
again.
storm taking us?
I said to keep
I will say, these voices, which again, I clearly don't like, but calling back to full speed ahead. It's like, yeah, you're not really going full speed ahead. You're going full speed back to where you started. Part of also making Aeolus more divine allows them to not be bound by the constraints of Aeolia. And so you can have this conversation between Aeolus and Odysseus in this moment, as opposed to just like bringing him all the way back to Aeolia and they meet again. It maintains motion and movement in the narrative, so that makes sense. The next stop would technically be the Laestrygonians. I wonder if he's going to keep that. He's kind of got to, but I'm trying to think how musically you would do that.
Where's the storm taking us?
I said to keep the bag closed, but you weren't compliant. If I had to guess, you're headed to the land of the giants.
So we are going to the Laestrygonians, who are giants. They're cannibal giants.
Help me close the bag! But sir, it's too late! We can save whatever wind is left to use another day! Come on!
Whatever wind is left. Again, the winds were personified, like they were there or they weren't. It kind of isn't like you get part of it. It's you get all of them or none of them.
Odysseus of Ithaca! Do you know who I am?
No, but I want to know, who are you? Are you related to the Laestrygonians? Are you the leader of the Laestrygonians? I have full body chills. My hair is completely standing on end. That voice. Who knows his name, like calls him out by name, Odysseus of Ithaca. No. Are we bringing in Poseidon? Because nobody else would know his name. If that's Poseidon, that's actually a really smart change from a dramatic perspective. If this is Poseidon, which, oh my god, that voice. Ooh, girl, calm down. This isn't Zeus. You need to calm down.
You need to calm down.
Poseidon appears what would be late in the narrative of Epic. Again, early in the Odyssey. He appears as this kind of in-between Odysseus getting from Calypso's island to Ithaca. There's a small run-in with Poseidon. Before then, Poseidon is mentioned, but he doesn't directly appear. However, and this will be interesting because supposedly we're in the land of the Laestrygonians, but this still kind of makes sense. The Laestrygonians, again, this race of cannibal giants, are also children of Poseidon. So it would make sense even still for Poseidon to be with the Laestrygonians. Like, there's a connection. But introducing him now is like laying the seed for, you're gonna have to meet him again. I mean, if you argue who's, besides Odysseus himself, who's Odysseus' big antagonist, arguably it's Poseidon. You bring him in, you set him up as the main antagonist. Not a villain, not a bad guy, just an antagonist. This is absolute semantics, and I will argue it forever and always. It's crucial to understanding narrative. The protagonist is not necessarily your hero. The protagonist is just the lead of the story. An antagonist is just somebody who is against the protagonist. People who are really, really good with narrative, one, know and understand this, two, often play with this. But bringing in Poseidon, if that is who that is this early, is a really, really smart choice. Bring in your primary divine antagonist. Bring him in, I mean, at a point like this, which still kind of makes sense, because of things that happen with the Laestrygonians, one, and then again, the Laestrygonians are children of Poseidon. You've landed in yet another spot of people who aren't going to like you based on essentially a divine blood feud that you started. Odysseus and your dumbass actions, hello fucking consequences, with a voice that just makes me want to clutch pearls.
That's unfair.
Oh my god, guys, I have a feeling the next song is gonna break me in a good way. With a voice like that. I'm just saying.